Having something that a lot of people have never even heard of really sucks, because at that point, people can't really help you. Either they'll admit to lacking the necessary knowledge, or just be a dick and tell you something completely useless. Cutaneous Adherence syndrome is a rare condition where your skin ends up feeling sticky, and no matter what you do, that unpleasant feeling just never goes away. When I first got this condition in my hands a few years ago, I thought it would just be a temporary thing. But no, it decided to be a stubborn little bitch and stick around. Over the years, I've occasionally done some research, but I found next to nothing useful. This is partially because so many people aren't even aware that such a condition even exists. But still, I decided to see if there were any updates, and it's about as much, maybe only slightly more than back then. Since the internet doesn't have too much on the subject, I'm going to be going over a lot from my personal experience. My story begins in November 2015. It was just after Thanksgiving and my family was setting up Christmas decorations. At first, I thought all I'd have to do was wash my hands and it would go away. I was wrong. Then I thought that maybe if I waited, it would go away over time. The next day, my hands felt the same. Since the condition stuck around, I did research when I could, but couldn't find anything useful. The only thing I really learned was there were a handful of other people suffering from the same or similar problems, but didn't know what to do. That's because no one truly knew what to do about this. The only thing that stuck in my mind was the fact that there seemed to be no cure for this condition. And if there was, I probably wouldn't still have it right now. A condition like this, you can probably imagine, made it harder to play video games. Can't really play Smash 3DS when your 3DS doesn't want to let go of your hand. But there were some inconsistencies with this condition. I could get on my computer and use a keyboard and mouse without having any problems, and at one point, I was actually fine holding my 3DS despite having the condition. But over time, that would go away. A lot of the video game genres I like to play, I couldn't really play anymore. This is part of the reason I played a lot of visual novels during this time. As the days continued like this, I just kept wanting this feeling in my hands to go away. But no matter what, it wouldn't. I tried what I could, even if it would only be temporary. Even stupid things like running my hands under really hot or really cold water for a bit. I mean, with a condition that has no known cure, you'd be kinda willing to try anything, no matter how dumb it sounds at some point. Both of these at different points seem to work as temporary cures. I'd feel better for like a few minutes at least. Honestly, it was hard to do anything with electronics when I was like this. I couldn't use my computer comfortably, and I could only play games on my 3DS that either let you use the touchscreen or required you to use the touchscreen. I wouldn't be able to rely on what little information I got online or random crap I was willing to try just because. I actually went to see a dermatologist to see if they could figure anything out. Well, I learned a bit more, but that's it. It was at this point that I learned how rare the condition was. I was told that most people would have to see a few different dermatologists before one of them would know what they were talking about. I guess I lucked out since it only took one. This dermatologist told me that I was one of only 2 cases he had seen in 30 years. At that point, it really sunk in how hard this was going to be. I wondered if there would ever be anything anyone could actually do about this, or if there would be anything I could do. The dermatologist did recommend one thing to me. I was told to use something called Drysol, which is a product used to treat hyperhidrosis, or excessive sweating. When my hands started feeling this way, they definitely had much more of a sweat problem, but now they really only feel sticky. Apparently there is some relation between the two conditions, which is why Drysol was recommended to me. So I tried it, and it didn't work. Like, at all. In the end, all that my 2 dermatologist visits told me was this was really rare, there is no cure, and there seemed to be no way in hell to figure out what caused it in the first place. Despite having this condition, I just continued to live my life. One day, my mother saw a commercial for this lotion called Carpe, meant to treat hyperhidrosis, so she asked me if I wanted to try it. I was still willing to try just about anything, so I said I would. It arrived, and while nowhere near perfect, it has worked so much better than any of the other things that I've tried. But because it's not perfect, I can't just put it on and then start playing video games because the discomfort won't take too long to come back. So after a while, I just started wearing socks on my hands because I didn't have the right gloves at the time. This would lead to me using gloves eventually, and now whenever I want to play a game or use any of my electronic devices that aren't my phone, I usually have them on. So I was able to get back to playing more than just visual novels, but now that I think about it, it's probably partially because of this condition that I love visual novels in the first place. I spent so much time with them because I couldn't play anything else. Though, if I hadn't developed this condition, I'm sure I'd still have loved playing them frequently. This is how the condition has affected my life. I'm not the only one with it, but sometimes it can feel that way with how few of us there are. But I know they exist from the research I've put into this subject every now and then. Like I mentioned earlier, I found people talking about this condition and not knowing what to do. The responses they get usually aren't that helpful and are usually something like quit masturbating. It really hurts seeing people fail to see that none of this is a joke. It may not be a life-threatening or contagious condition, but it's real. My most recent research shows that there are a few things that can lead to sticky skin. However, we've never been able to figure out which one of these causes is my own. I mentioned hyperhidrosis earlier, and I remember hearing that it could cause cutaneous adherence syndrome. The former could be caused by stress, and since it came at one of the most stressful points in my life, I thought that might have been the cause at the time. It seems the major cause for sticky hands are low bloodstream oxygen levels, because it causes the deficiency of energy that's required for one's hands to be a normal texture. Well, I know I have some issues with bloodstream in my hands, I have Raynaud's after all. It causes blood vessels to narrow when feeling cold or stressed. When my hands get cold, they turn purple, and if they get really warm, they turn red. I don't know if this has any connection, but I figured it was worth mentioning anyway since this entire thing is about my hands. Other causes for sticky skin include overdosage of medication, heat exhaustion, cardiac issues, acute allergic attack, pneumonia, dehydration, and bites from insects or animals. Some more research showed me a lot of the same thing. There's this thing called ketoconazole. I'm not sure if I said that right or not, but whatever. It's an artifungal medication used to treat certain infections caused by fungus. It seems that sticky skin is an adverse drug reaction and could be connected to that long K word. From what I've read, it seems patients that had been receiving that stuff I just mentioned, doxorubicin and retinoids, have reported sticky skin. The part that stands out to me is the K word because I used a shampoo containing it years ago because a doctor recommended it for the dandruff problem I had at the time. From what I recall, the dermatologist I went to asked about it, but we were never certain of whether or not that would have been the cause for me. With as few people as there are with this condition, it's hard to do any actual studying to figure out what's been causing it so we can find a cure for real. So that's my story. I ended up with a rare condition with no known cure. But I found ways to treat it, so I can live with it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get this 3DS off my hand!